Good morning, Magicals, and I hope that you are good. I hope that you've had a fantastic week and that you are relaxing this weekend. Okay, guys, so I have taken a bit of sabbatical from doing any videos or anything since the last one I put out. For those of you who shared love and gratitude privately and other, I cannot express enough of my own gratitude and love for all of you. So thank you so much. That was a tough video for me to make, and it was even tougher going through the healing afterwards. It caught me off guard a little bit, I can't lie. So all good. Again, you can see energy change. We've come through the other side of it. And I have been guided to do a couple more mother wounding videos. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to you about different aspects of the mother wounds in the different videos. There are about 7 videos. I think I've jotted it down. I've taken some notes. So I don't know what it is. Every time I come on camera, I get itches and scratches. I don't know what it is. It's the weirdest thing. Okay, so I've got about 7 different topics, I think it is, and I'm going to start today with how the mother wound actually presents in our relationships. Okay, now please understand that you need oh God, really, you need to take this how this resonates for you. All right, so it doesn't necessarily have to resonate in a romantic relationship, but it can resonate in other relationships in your life. So that's friendships, that's other familial relationships, it's any kind of relationship you have. It can even, I suppose, extend so far as to going into relationships with colleagues and things that would trigger you around certain aspects of your healing. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about first is I want to talk to you about how we recognize how the mother wound actually presents in our lives. Okay, and there are a number of different ways, and unfortunately they're quite large ways that they present. Okay, so I spoke quite a lot about self-sabotage the last time. And how it's such a big thing in my life. Again, bear with me, please, because this is again going to be something that is, I'm going to use my life as a reference point, simply to, as an example, as a way to explain to you how to maybe look at things and how to perceive things and how to maybe join the dots in your own space. Okay. And I want to say that self-sabotage kind of carries 2 levels to it. So there's the everyday self-sabotage that stops us from actually just growing, right? But we go one elevated level above that. There's a self-sabotage that some of us do where we get to a point where we are just about to have a massive breakthrough. Okay, so if you're not one of the beginner self-sabotagers that don't even get you to that point, then you may possibly be a self-sabotager where you actually self-sabotage just before something comes to fruition and just before something actually comes into your space that really is going to be something special. Now, for some of us, that really can be, sorry, I'm so sorry. It's irritating me already. Really? For some of us, that can be things like meeting the right person. And because you've never really experienced nurturing and unconditional love, then what happens is we then sabotage that with creating stuff in our head. We go into playing in our fears. We go, okay, well, why on earth would that person feel like I'm worthy of being loved and nurtured and taken care of? And we almost like start the self-doubting, and with that we start our self-sabotaging programming. I'm so sorry. Yes, you were. Okay, so that can appear in many different ways to us. I will talk to you a bit about relationships that I've been in where I have self-sabotaged and I haven't seen, or where I have played small and I've held myself back. But I want to say to you that you need to take a long, hard look at this. This is not something that, for some of us, you may be well aware. Like I'm quite cognizantly aware of where I'm at and what's gone on and what's happening in my space. But understanding that I do a lot of work on myself all the time, okay? And I'm actively working on these things. It's not to say that you guys maybe aren't healing, but this is about now really fine-tuning the healing around these spaces in order for you to really get to where you need to be in your healing process. Okay, so what I want to say to you is we self-sabotage, right? We play small. Why? Because we don't want to be threatening. We want to appear non-threatening, right? There's nothing worse in this world than a woman who stands in her power. Again, we talked briefly about that patriarchal system where women haven't been allowed to stand in their power for so long. So a woman who can stand in their power, that is like possibly one of the worst things that can happen, especially when you have a mother who doesn't know how to stand in hers. Okay, we become very threatening when we look like we're about to bloom. Okay, so please just look at that. Think about that. That's something that I think happens more often than not. And I think we just need to identify the areas in our life that it plays out in. Okay. I've written some notes because I didn't want to be off pointer. Right. Codependency is huge. Okay. Often because we are the nurturers, because we become the parents. So what happens around that is that we just become used to actually, sorry, we actually become used to, just give me 1 second. I'm going to just pause this. I'll be back now. Sorry, apologies. My baby girl was struggling to get into her bed. She's getting a bit older now. Okay, so we're talking about playing small in relationships and... Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry, I'm back in the room. All right. We have been the parents so long, right, that nurturing others and putting others in front of ourselves and making sure that everybody else is okay has become a norm for us. All right. Now, what happens with that is that we become codependent. Right. And that happens because we make ourselves invaluable to people. And what I mean by that is that we end up taking care of every whim, every need. And that person then goes, well, I like this energy. I don't have to do anything. What happens with that energy is, please understand, for those that are new to the channel and who maybe don't follow too much energy stuff, whatever energy we put out is the energy we draw back into us. We attract what we put out. Okay. So when we are putting out an energy of, don't worry, come here, I'll give you a hug, I'll take care of you, I'll make it all better, we are going to appeal to the people who don't actually want to partake in their own lives, or who want to have us do everything for them and not have to make any reciprocal effort. Okay, now that is huge. Reciprocal effort in a relationship is massive. There has to be balance, right? So that automatically stems from us going, we weren't getting from what we got from our moms. So we either try hard, we try so hard, so that we make such an effort, and they're like, "Oh, you such a good girl," this, and we think that by giving them so much, they'll reciprocate. Or alternatively, we just get so used to being the parent that it becomes a natural state of being for us. Okay, so codependency for us is huge. The other thing we need to look at is eating disorders. Now, you can see that I'm clearly not... I'm not a Victoria's Secret model, and I have struggled with a food addiction my entire life, and I do use the word addiction. I have to own that, okay? Why I took part of this time away, and I actually stopped advertising the class as well. I had a few people wanting to book, and I actually bailed on it. And when I say I bailed on it, I didn't bail like bail, but that's probably the wrong choice of word completely, sorry. I've actively chosen not to run the class at the moment. I feel like there is so much more for me to bring to the table if I just give it a bit of time, if that makes sense. So one of the things that has come in this week where I have taken this time is that I've always been an emotional eater. Now, that's great, right? That's absolutely great. We all know that we emotionally eat. You don't even have to be a food addict to do that. But what does food give us, right? If you check a little list of what makes us happy, to get dopamine, right, they say, eat a meal, eat a nice meal. Okay, so food is always a pick-me-upper. Especially if you're sitting down. I mean, for me, my best, like, oh my God, a nice glass of red wine and a fabulous pasta, and I'm good to go, right? But it goes one step further when you face morbid obesity head on because you can't stop the eating. Okay. Now, I also have to own, and I have to own this. All right. My mom was not very good about balanced meals. I didn't grow up in a home that sat down to balanced meals all the time. There was a lot of takeaways that were brought into my childhood. Okay. And so for me, that's a default setting. Now, that might have been something she started, but that's not something I've ever corrected. I'm 45 years old. I haven't corrected that. okay? And that's not okay. That's on me. That's not on her, right? So what I'm going to say to you is, very briefly, it doesn't matter what aspects we are looking at in this healing process over the next couple of videos, all right? There comes a point where you need to step out of blame and look at where you need to carry some of the responsibility. Okay, I know it's not great to hear, but it's the truth. So I've had to look. This whole healing really triggered my eating badly. I have been eating really bad food for the last couple of days, and I say really bad food. I'm saying it like that because my body is not responding well to it anymore. Okay, I don't get to have, and I'm not talking about like I didn't sit for like days just eating, but instead of ordering some soup ingredients and making a nice pot of soup for myself, I instead would buy, I'd go and get myself a veggie burger. Like, I'd order it online, like go and get a Steers veggie burger, or something like that. There was always something that, or like get a pizza, or it triggered that need for absolute comfort food. Okay. And why I'm telling you all of this is because I had to sit down with what I was actually feeling at that point in time. What was the emotion that was being triggered? What was I needing, right, in order for me to want to get a takeaway? Let's just use that as a basic example. I want you guys to relate this in your own lives, though. When you are triggered by something, sit back and go, okay, what am I feeling? What is the undercurrent? What am I needing from this triggering? So if it's to, you feel the need to save people, or you feel the need to constantly take care of your partner, okay, what is it giving me? What is that action giving me? Okay, what am I needing from that? And what is the undercurrent of that? So my undercurrent was nurturing. I needed nurturing. Okay, now that's quite a wide spectrum of things. Nurturing can be a million different things. So I dug a little bit deep and I thought, okay, we're working with the mother wound, so this has been triggered by that. So it has to be related to that. So it can't be that wanting a partner to hold me at night and that kind of nurturing, because that's not really relevant at the moment. So what is it then that I'm looking for? And it struck me that I had many memories in my childhood where my mom would hand over food as opposed to actually being present. So she would buy me a big packet of chips and a big Super Moon, a big slab of chocolate, and say, okay, go play with your friends. And we'd all get one, and then they'd go off and do their own thing. There were many times where food became an act of nurturing. Okay, and I do kind of want to talk about this in another video, so I don't want to go too deep into this. But the reality is, I got to the core of what I needed from food. Knowing that, I changed it like that. I'm reprogramming what I need for nurturing. So when I feel like that and I feel that energy coming up, I'm changing that. I go and read a book with a cup of tea, or I do some work that I want to do, or I go and play with the dogs, or I do some exercise, or I'm reprogramming what feeds my soul, or I do something creative. Okay, please make sure that when you are getting triggers through this healing process, that you are acknowledging what the core of it is, because that's going to give you the key to what needs to be healed, obviously. Okay, right. So we've looked at a couple of things. We've looked at not playing small because we want to be non-threatening. We've looked at self-sabotage just before breakthroughs. We've looked at eating disorders and codependency. Right. So those are 5 things that show up. Right. Now let's look at how that relates to our relationships. Okay, because that's the core of what I want this video to be. Now, I was married to someone that I loved very much. Okay, and I'm going to put in a huge disclaimer here. In no way am I demonizing my ex-wife. In no way am I saying she did not actively partake in the business that we were working in together, or in our lives. Okay, I'm not saying that. This is not a blame thing. I'm not saying she didn't. But for those of you who watched the first video, I will say, I said to you very strongly that I had become my mother's meal ticket. She used me to access money from my grandfather. Okay. Now, when I went into my marriage, I went into my relationship with my partner at the time. We were engaged. I wasn't married to her. I moved into her place, and she was having some financial struggle at the time, and I was earning a salary. It wasn't a great salary, but it was a salary. And inevitably, by me moving in and taking over some of the bills, she was able to then cover the bond and not lose the house, etc., etc., etc. So I played out that whole meal ticket again. That wasn't my responsibility to take on, right? But that pattern continued throughout our entire marriage. So her business was very small when I went into it with her, and we as a team, and I say that as a team, as a dynamic team, we built that business. However, that money ticket, that energy still carried into my relationship. It still carried into my relationship. It carried in the way that whenever she said to me, "Love, I've looked at the costings and all of that this month. I need to do some extra orders. We need some extra money in." No problem, baby. I've got you. I've got you covered. I'll do a demo. I'll research some stuff. Let's look at what we've got in store that we can sell, that we've got more of. So I can do demos around that, and we can move the stock. And I promise you, I used to pull rabbits out of hats constantly, constantly. It was her business, not mine. Okay, I had no right to that business. And when I left the marriage, I got nothing from it. So let's just be clear on that, right? But what would happen is things like, oh, we're going to go and do a show, and they've offered us a spot on Show Me How. So I'm not going on TV, so you need to. She'd say to me, you need to be the person going on TV now because I'm not going to. That's not me. I can't do this. This is on you, love. You got to do this. It's for the business. And I became that reliable go-to person all the time in the business itself. Okay? I became that person that that literally did everything she needed me to do when it came to that. So I was running the home, taking care of her. I was doing the accounts. I was doing the social media. I was doing the classes and the research. I did we worked together on the prep for it. I mean, I really did become everything to her that she needed in the business. Okay, so in my life, the money ticket thing played out hugely in my marriage. Hugely. It happened in my first relationship as well. She had a job, but didn't have a car, didn't have anywhere to live, didn't. So moved in with me. I had the car, which meant that while I was studying and doing my varsity degrees, I was getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go and fetch her from her work, which was 15 or 18 kilometers away, at 2 o'clock in the morning because she was in the hotel industry. And that was like an everyday thing. I'd be in the afternoons, I'd be shifting schedules to try and get her to work and back again. I became the money ticket, right? And you have to look at this in your life in terms of, what were you to your mother? What were you to your mother that was unhealthy? What were you that you should never have been to her? Right? Because that will play out in a relationship. 2 of the 3 long-term relationships I had that played out in. Okay? So just so we're all clear on that. Then we look at codependency. Now, I am fastly independent. I might be a Cancerian sun sign, but I have Aries in 4 positions, North Node and Moon being 2 of them. I'm fastly independent. I was an only child who went to boarding school at like 7. I am good being on my own and doing my own stuff and. Right? My first 2 relationships, completely not codependent. My third one, my marriage, oh my God. Oh my God. I allowed that to spiral into such a space that she used to phone me from work and she'd say to me, "Baby, I'm leaving work now," because she would work at the shop and I'd be at home in the office. And she'd say to me, "I just want to ask you a question. Am I coming home to my beautiful wife, or am I coming home to Snappy the turtle?" And it was kind of like a joke, but it actually wasn't. I became a person I did not like. because I didn't understand that the codependency was actually smothering me. It was smothering me, right? And it became all encompassing. And I have to own that. I can't blame her for that. I have to own that. It was something I needed and didn't stand up for. So it got to the point where I lost so many friends through that marriage. So many, right? Okay, I'll talk to you a bit about that when it comes to the playing small and being non-threatening. So many friends I lost through that. Like, you don't understand. Then we got to always just being available. Like, she would get to the point, she was so clingy, and I allowed it. I allowed it. That's the worst part. I allowed it. Let's be clear on that. That I couldn't go and, like, she'd get irritated with me. Every year I'd knit her a scarf. Okay, let's just put it into perspective. I'd knit her a scarf and we'd go and choose the yarn and the colours and whatever she wanted, and I would sit and I'd knit her a scarf coming up to every winter. Okay, so she had a new scarf in her collection. Now, she would get irritated with me when I sat on the bigger couch to knit the scarf, because then I could move around, I could check my patterns and all of that. Because I wasn't sitting on the smaller couch with her where I'd have to sit upright so she could lay down and have her legs over me and I could tickle her feet. That is how far our codependency went. That any moments in time that I needed for myself were not given to me. And my work days were busy. So it's not like I could go out and have a cup of tea with my mates during work or something like that. And if I did, let me tell you, there were questions around that. She was like, have you not got work to do? Could you not be doing something else? You know, by the end, it just got all consuming. It became all consuming. And so I became frustrated with that, and I would lash out verbally, not realizing why I was so uptight all the time, but understanding on some level that I needed to breathe. I just couldn't breathe. It was just not something that I was able to do. Okay. Now, codependency is one of the most crippling things and inevitably will end a relationship. Whether it's the friend who always needs you, whether it's the family member that always calls on you when you've got 12 siblings and no one else ever raises their hand, whether it's the partner that just is like completely and utterly overwhelming all the time. It gets too much. Codependency is not healthy. It doesn't allow for you to grow in any which way, shape, or form. Okay? And it gets to the point where you do lose people. Okay, because people get tired of the conditionings of we can meet, but or like, yeah, I want to go out for dinner with my friends. Oh no, but I'll come with. I was once invited to a girls' weekend, and she said, "Oh, that'll be fun." I said to her, "You're not coming with. It's a girls' weekend with my girls. I'm going." And she replied, and she looked at me and she said, "But that's the thing about being gay, is that we?" And I was like, "No, it's not the thing about being gay. That's not why we're gay. We don't go. We're not gay so we can go to girls' weekends together. We're gay because we love each other and we're together and we're both women." Like, and she was like, "Well, if you're gonna go, I'm gonna change the locks. Don't come home if I can't come with." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Seriously, are you kidding me?" So what happened? I didn't go. So she got away. And what happens with that is that the codependency then becomes a tool that they use to keep you giving what they want all the time. Okay, so it is a dangerous, dangerous, and a very, very, very slippery slope. So what I'm going to say to you is make sure that you are very cognizant about where you are codependent in your life. Okay, best friends can be codependent. Seriously. Like, honestly, I'd say the only healthy codependency would be with your dog, because they're actually worth it and they give you unconditional love in return. But aside from that, like, I'd say just be careful where you're going with that, okay? It's a tricky one, and it's something that we do learn from our mother wounding. So in order to heal the mother wounding, we need to address where we are codependent in our lives. Yeah. And we could never do things separately. That was just like it was the weirdest thing. It was honestly the weirdest thing. And I didn't realize how badly I needed to do things on my own, I think, more than anything. And so moving into a new relationship, the one thing is that I want somebody who is fastly independent. I want them to have their hobbies where they say to me, "Babe, I'm going out for the day," and I'm like, "Hustle away goes muchachas. I will see you on the flip side. I'm going to do a Midsummer Murders and pasta day, or I'm going to spend the day painting, or I'm going to do something." I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's even working, because I love my work, but I'm not, I'm going to be alone, right? So please just watch that. Okay, really important. Right. Now let's look at being non-threatening in relationships. Okay. I spoke in the first video about how our wounded mothers sometimes couldn't accept our achievements and how we succeeded and right. I unfortunately had a partner who was I had a wife who was very, her self-worth wasn't great. Okay. Now, we all struggle with self-worth, so we have to be tolerant of that and understand this. And again, for those at the back, I'm going to reiterate, this is not a blame and I'm not demonizing her. Okay. I am talking about my processes and my perspective and my healing. All right. And what I have to take responsibility for. Okay. Disclaimer, I'm putting it in there just to remind you. Okay. Now, one of the things is that she would always downplay me to make herself feel better. Something my mother always did. It's exactly the same thing my mother always did. I literally chose the partner, and I have to say this, I do believe that my mother and my ex-wife are the two greatest teachers I've ever had in my life. They have taught me lessons about myself, about my healing, about who I don't want to be, who I don't want to be with, okay? What types of people you get, right? They have taught me a span of different really important lessons. Really important lessons. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. Okay? But I played small the whole time. The whole time. And we went through a lot. When we met, I was very large. I was like 168 kgs large. So that's what, I don't know how many pounds that is. I think that's like 168. You're coming up on like 320 or 330 pounds or something like that. I don't know, roughly speaking. Okay. The goddess didn't give me maths. She knew I'd be all powerful. Okay. So I was huge. I was really big. Really big. She fell in love with me, no issues. She said, but I really would like a skinny wife. We want to have kids and I need you to be healthy for that. And I tried. And I promise you, it just didn't work. My eating actually escalated hugely with that because I was nurturing her in every possible way, but I wasn't being nurtured the way I needed to be nurtured. That's not to say she didn't do stuff for me, but I wasn't being nurtured the way I needed to be nurtured. I didn't feel safe for a number of different reasons, okay, which are not really relevant to the video, but just know I didn't really feel safe in a number of different ways, okay? So I snack ate, which is even worse, okay? That's even worse. And it really became a problem in our relationship. So come to the end of this all now, and I finally decided, you know, I've had enough. I really want to be skinny for me and all of that. Well, I thought I was doing it for me, and I dropped. I dropped over 100 kgs, right? 200 pounds. I dropped. And I was sitting at like 68 kgs. And we had some hard stuff in the marriage. She had gone through back surgery and all sorts of things had happened. But we got through them, and I was skinny. And I was looking good. And I wasn't just thin, I was training. I was feeling good. I was running every day. I was at the gym every day, sometimes twice a day. I was really doing well. And people started noticing. We would be walking in the mall, and I never ever went out without my wedding band and my engagement ring on. I'm not that person. I'm never the person to make my partner feel insecure. And people would hit on me and people would make comments about it, and it became overwhelming for her. And so she left me. It got too much for her. She needed that new sparkly thing that would make her feel better because I was getting the attention. And she did it in a lot of different ways in our relationship, in a lot of different ways. You know, it was always those constant little jokes that she would make. You know, like when I would sing, she'd go, "Oh my God, you've got a stomachache again." And it always came across as a joke, but it actually wasn't. It was I can't sing, so you can't either kind of energy. I'm saying this to you again. There were a million reasons why I loved that woman, and she was, to this point, to date, she's been the love of my life. So I am not saying, again, people are broken. They are not bad, okay? And some people don't know how to fix their broken. All right. So we don't judge that, but we make sure that we manage ourselves so that we don't get bled on by the people that have not been cut by us. Okay. And my God, she bled on me, and I allowed it. I allowed it because I was like, she's my wife. I love her. We've got a life together. We love our life, and I didn't for a moment stop and go, actually, what do I need from this? What am I not getting? She could not handle that I'd stepped into my power to the point where she called for a separation. I then subsequently called for the divorce because I was like, I can't actually do this anymore. I think taking some time away from the whole situation gave me time to actually breathe and to process what we'd been through and. So look at that. Look at that. Okay. One of the things I did leave off is that when we have mother wounds, we get very accustomed to being treated poorly. Okay. And that also plays out. We have a strong resilience for being treated poorly. And that is not okay. That is not okay in any which way, shape, or form. And it's probably why, in having done my healings and done all of that stuff, right, I am now rigid on my boundaries with certain things. If you show up at a table and I'm at that table and there is disrespect being served, I will get up and leave. You don't get to mock me or and I'm not saying we don't have fun and laugh and joke and tease each other or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But when it comes to actually disrespecting me and being rude, I don't tolerate that. I don't tolerate that at all. And I don't even mean an inch. Like I will not even give you a quarter of an inch to get into my space like that. It won't happen. So look at where people treat you badly and you accept it because it's become a norm for you. Look at the things that when people say it feels uncomfortable or you're like, that really was a little bit unkind, but she always does that. It's fine. It's not fine. It's not okay. Actually, no. No. People are not welcome to bring their stuff to your door. If you are going through healings and you are going through transitions and you are doing what you need to do, they don't get without permission, they don't just get to throw stuff at you. Don't arrive at my door with your rage and your anger and your fury and your upset and your whatever without saying, I know you're in the process. Do you mind if I talk to you about something? You don't do that. You don't disrespect my spaces. Right? So look at that because I accepted a lot of that in a number of different relationships, including friendships. This is not just about my ex-wife now. This is including friendships. Okay, so just be vigilant about that. Make sure that things are not becoming habits because that's what I found. I found that a lot of my eating disorder actually had become a habit. It had become a habit because it was what I knew and I wasn't correcting. I wasn't auto-correcting to do what nurtured me. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, so I also, again, with the self-sabotage, I self-sabotaged in the marriage. And it took the form of something that would really change my life quite a lot, I think. I don't regret it in hindsight. I regret how I handled it and how it played out. But I had done my BA LLB, right, my Bachelor of Arts with my classical civilizations and my law as my majors. And I had done night school to get through my law degree and a bit of online, distance learning to try and get through my law degree. And I had 8 subjects left when we got married. I had 8. Understanding that when we got married, we didn't have much money at all. Okay. And the subjects they were expensive, but they weren't too expensive. They were manageable if I did them, and I could have done them. I could have done 2 subjects a semester and kind of gotten to the end of it over a 2-year period. I could have opted for that, right? And we had the conversation when I said, oh, listen, love, I need to apply. I need to get my applications in now because UNISA is closing now, and I need to get my subjects chosen and ready for the last part of my law degree. And she said to me, beg your pardon, you what? And I said, I've got to finish my law degree. I've got like 8 subjects left. Like, I can then go and do my articles and earn a decent salary for us. Like, it's going to be a good thing. And she was like, no, you don't do that. You get to choose. You choose between your marriage or your law degree. And the funniest thing is, she made it easy for me to self-sabotage by doing that. Again, just before breakthrough, 8 subjects away. I would have walked away with 2 bachelor's degree and an honors degree. And why? Why did I self-sabotage? Because she played small. Because she wasn't educated like that. She didn't have a degree. And so that played out in, you don't get another one. You certainly don't get to do your article. She was like, how are we going to work this? How are we going to have our life when you are off doing your articles and? And I was like, we'll make a plan. Like, just relax in your slacks. It'll happen. Like, calm down to running panic. And it was a no. And I allowed that. Understand again, because we act from kindness, that she was acting from her broken and I was acting from mine. Or let me say, I reacted from mine by bailing on my law degree. 8 subjects left. That was a big self-sabotage on my part. A very big one. And I think that it's something that I used to regret and now I don't see the point of, because I really love what I do now and I'm on my path. But it was a huge lesson for me. A massive lesson for me, that again, when we go into partnerships with people, they need to be there to support us and to have our backs, and not to try and sabotage, or not to assist us in our self-sabotage, if that makes sense. Obviously, the end game is to heal the self-sabotage, so we're not self-sabotaging anyway. But until such point, we have partners who support us, because I think it makes it easier when you have someone who goes, no, go for it, we'll do it, we'll work around it, I'll make the dinners and we'll get you sorted and we'll make a plan, don't worry. When you have that kind of level of support, which most of us as mother wounders are not used to. We're not used to having the partners who would do that for us. We're just not. So, I think it's been such a big eye-opener for me, looking back at all of this stuff and going, this is how my mother wound has played out in my lives. And it's been in this last week. I literally have been going through all of this stuff, right? And it's been a big one. It's been a really big one. Before I end off the video, I want to talk about one last thing. Self-abandonment. Okay, a lot of us suffer from abandonment, core wounds, maternal abandonment. Okay, now abandonment is one thing. We choose partners that abandon us every time. I have been left in every relationship, like I can't even explain to you. It's been ridiculous. At some point, even if we've gotten back together and I've left after that, there's been a leaving. I've always been abandoned. Okay. And I think that a lot of the time, what has also happened is that I have self-abandoned hugely. Okay. I think it's kind of one of the unspoken side effects of our woundings is that we self-abandon frequently, because abandonment becomes something that is completely natural to us. So self-abandonment for me, first word sounds like, very much looks like not showing up for myself, not doing the nurturing and the self-care, and not doing the self-sabotage. It's like the collective net, the self-abandonment is like a collective net that houses all of our other brokens that we've accumulated from our mother wounding. Okay, and that's the final kind of piece in the puzzle, is that we just abandon ourselves. We abandon ourselves for other people. We abandon ourselves to make other people feel better about themselves. We abandon ourselves for a million different reasons. Lack of confidence, right? Fear of being too powerful, so wanting to play small, not being threatening. We abandon ourselves for a million different reasons. Please check in and find out where you are self-abandoning, because I self-abandoned horribly in my marriage. And the thing that I think I did it the most with was probably the freedom I needed. I had no real freedom in my marriage. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I wasn't chained up in the house and couldn't go anywhere. I mean, I did shit, but like, there was no core freedom. Even me just trying to do my crafts and things like that became difficult. And it was always disguised. That's a funny thing. Like, you look back and you think, I really wanted to learn how to quilt. There was something I wanted to do my whole life. And I learned how to, she said, okay, if we're going to do the quilting class, that's fine, but it's really expensive. And she wasn't wrong. It was very expensive. She said, we don't actually need a quilt. So let's do something where we make it as a present, like for mom and dad or whatever. And we were talking about her mom and dad. And then we can give it to them for Christmas. So it's actually got like one present down kind of thing. So I said, that's perfect. I don't mind doing that. I just want to learn the techniques. So my very first class She walks in 2 hours into my class to bring me lunch. Okay. Now, I'm not really the skeptical type. I really am big on romance, and she was very romantic in a lot of ways, and she did really beautiful things that didn't impact my freedom. Okay. She did some amazingly beautiful things, like filling the whole house with flowers for me, and hiding my Christmas presents so I could go like on a hunt for them, because I've got this thing about Christmas. Just really, like, she was amazing in so many ways. Okay. But when it came to me just wanting to break out of our space for a little bit, just for a little bit of me space, that made her feel insecure. So she arrived with lunch and a present, and was like, oh, I just wanted to come and see, what you're doing. And I was like, well, I'm quilting. Like, and she's like, I just want to see who's in the class. And she was so panicked, I think, because a woman in a woman's quilting class, I mean, I don't know what she thought was going to happen. Like, I was going to run off. I mean, I absolutely idolized the woman. I worshipped the ground she walked on. So there was never going to be that. But it was her insecurity, her going, I feel left out. Which actually came from a father wounding on her side, just ironically. Not feeling enough, and that kind of stuff. And that played out in my space. Okay. So please have a look where these things are starting to play out in your relationships. And it can be your partner, or it can be any other relationship you have in your life. Where are you stepping up and showing up and they are not? Where are you letting yourself down? Where are you playing small to make them feel better? Where are you self-sabotaging? Where are you self-abandoning? Okay, those are really, really, really huge things to start looking at. Okay, now before I go, I want to just recommend 2 books to you. One is kind of like not really related to mother woundings, but okay, this book here changed my life. Don Miguel Ruiz, The 4 Agreements. If you haven't read this book, I suggest you get it and you read it. They say it's a practical guide to personal freedom. Okay, this book is, you can see I've read it many times. It's easy reading, guys. It's not a difficult book to read. It's not a very big book. It's got about it's like 130 something pages. Okay, easy reading. However, there's always a catch. The concepts are not as easy to apply, but if you can get this right, it is a game changer. The other one I serendipitously got this just before I started working on the mother wound healing from my aunt for my birthday, sorry. Women Who Run with the Wolves. Now, I've actually had a copy of this somewhere in the garage somewhere, and it came back to me again. So that's the universe saying I need to. This is a story, a collective of strong women. It's really about women empowerment, different stories that are taken through it, and more than that, there's quite a lot of psychology around it. I would suggest that if you can read this book, it is Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Okay, so there we go. Okay. Women Who Run with the Wolves. 2 amazing books to look at, guys. Seriously, they are really powerful books. And when you are healing and when you are trying to get to a place of self-empowerment and not abandoning self and not self-sabotaging, this is a game changer. I'm just saying. Okay, so guys, please, if you enjoying these contents, if you want to keep up to date on the other mother ones coming out, I'm going to do a video now quickly on spirit guides as well, and working with our team. Like my team have asked me to do one. That will also be putting out today. Please like, share, and subscribe. At the very least, subscribe, guys, because then you're going to get notifications. Hit the notification bell. But the more we are active on this, the more the algorithms go out, and other people can get the help. There are going to be other women out there who are struggling just as much as we are. So please, like, let's get it out there. Let's get them healing. Let's get us all into a space where we are honoring our divine feminine instead of hiding from it. Okay, so I am sending you lots of love as always.